Man versus Machine, back with you. Wyatt, Bradley, bringing you the fantasy goodness that you want. As everyone knows, Wyatt is the man. Like, he just spent a whole marathon of Mind of Mansion earlier today. If you guys haven't checked it out, Matt Kelly, Wyatt Bertolone, crushing it on the main channel. He's the man. And I'm just the machine.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all these compliments. I can't handle it. So let's get into some players.
Today we're going to be discussing. Okay, last week we spent a lot of time looking at muddy backfields. This week we're going to spend some time looking at hard to spot values at wide receiver. Like, there are going to be some muddier wide receiver rooms. The depth charts are not as clear. And part of this, Wyatt, is that wide receivers play different positions. Like,
Right.
like you can play multiple wide receivers. You don't very often see multiple running backs on the field at the same time. So, and they run different routes. They run in different locations. So all of these roles are valuable for different offenses as well. Wide receiver is, I think, one of the most finicky positions, especially because, yes, we know the top dogs, but like, usually after your wide receiver 1, it becomes unclear. Usually there's no wide receiver 2, it's just by committee, or maybe there's a rookie that stands out. We don't know. There's a lot of shifting that happens over the course of the offseason in terms of wide receiver depth charts. And so Wyatt and I are going to look at some of these depth charts to help you get some better insight and also find some fantasy values. We'll start in Chicago. Because we know DJ Moore and what he's done production-wise. He's been a wide receiver 1 in Carolina. He crushed with Justin Fields. Last year, it looked like statistically he took a step back, even with number 1 overall pick Caleb Williams. But I still anticipate he's going to be the guy. However, there was a lot of chatter coming out of the draft, given the selections of Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, and everyone's clamoring for Rome Odunze because year 2 breakout, he's going to be the guy. How convinced are you that Rome Odunze becomes the guy, number 1? And is DJ Moore still going to be the wide receiver 1 for Chicago?
It's still DJ Moore for me leading that pass catching group as a whole. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, and kind of Occam's razor for me has always been this offseason that DJ Moore is the known talent in this offense and known production history. So I've been betting on him more than anybody at their cost. I do like Rome Odunze still because I thought he was a pretty good prospect coming into the NFL, high draft capital. A lot of things went wrong his rookie year. Obviously, you have to knock him some because of that rookie year, because it certainly was not good. But Ben Johnson coming to town, them bolstering their offensive line, I think these are all really good things to help Caleb Williams continue to grow in the NFL. And I think Ben Johnson's going to put him in a good place to win. So I'm expecting Rome Odunze to not necessarily, I don't know if I want to use the word like have a breakout season, but I'm expecting him to impress us compared to what we saw from him as a rookie. The thing that I know, though, is that I don't want to draft Luther Burden much at all. I thought his production profile was a little bit red flaggy. Like, everyone kind of knows that because of how that production came, and there's plenty of reasons to explain that away. But the fact is that that's the way we have his production profile. He was supposed to be a first-round pick and then fell to the second round. I think that's a little bit concerning. And I think there's a lot of assumptions about what he'll be in the NFL and how quickly he'll be it for Ben Johnson. Like, everyone's just like, oh yeah, slot wide receiver. Ben Johnson loves the slot wide receiver. This is just going to happen. And that doesn't account for the fact that, like, DJ Moore can play the slot. Rome Odunze has been talked about being able to be a big slot. Maybe Ben Johnson's offense in Chicago won't run through the slot. Maybe that was a Amon-Ra St. Brown thing, not necessarily a Ben Johnson thing. There's just a lot of assumptions that going on there.
Right. There has been a lot of clamoring of who's going to be in the slot, who's going to take the Amon-Ra St. Brown role, and will Luther Burden do that? And I agree with you. The production profile, the player profile for Luther Burden just doesn't quite match. Him falling to the second round was not a good thing. And coming to a landing spot where, yeah, he's competing against DJ Moore and Rome Odunze right off the bat, but then you have first round draft capital Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet. And Cole Kmet is not a schlep. Like, I have my Notre Dame bias as Wyatt. I understand that. I get it. Cheer for old Notre Dame. I was watching Rudy last night. Like, this is the bias that continues to give. It doesn't matter. Cole Kmet is a professional tight end. He knows what he is, a good pass blocker. He is a good teammate. He's beloved in Chicago. He's tight end 38 right now, like virtually free. I think he's an interesting, late round selection if you want to just be contrarian to Colston Loveland at tight end 12. But the point is less about the tight end room is individuals and more so that both of them seem to be capable NFL caliber pass catching options. Not to mention DeAndre Swift, who has the pass catching profile out of the backfield. So these mouths to feed are a real concern in Chicago that will limit the upside of a player like Burden to have much of an impact outside of like a Rome Odunze or DJ Moore injury, right?
Yeah, I think for Luther Burden, you're hoping that he gets some work out of the backfield too to try and supplement the targets that he has, which I think he can do, and maybe that is part of the reason why the Bears were interested in him, despite just taking Colston Loveland, already having pass catching options, is because they wanted to use him somehow in the backfield as well. We all thought they were going to attack running back in the draft, and they didn't really do that. Just Kyle Monungai in the 7th, so if that's on the menu for Burden, like, that's exciting. And maybe we can change our mind about him, but not because of his strictly wide receiver duties.
Right. So we will stay interdivision. Chicago is always fun, but another team that's also fun is my Green Bay Packers. Go Packo! They're fun to discuss because it's a complete mess in the wide receiver room. Wyatt, it is. Who can it be now? Is the song that's sung on repeat. Matthew Golden is the wide receiver 1 by ADP. He's wide receiver 42 right now, but only by 1 slot over Jaden Reed, wide receiver 43. Romeo Doubs is wide receiver 67. Dontavian Wicks is wide receiver 88. They drafted Savion Williams on day 2. Yes, we know he's not necessarily like wide receiver role, but yes, they needed an answer for Christian Watson's going to be out for the majority of the season, if not the entire season. Matthew Golden, first round. Maybe there was a little bit of, we want to excite the crowd, draft a wide receiver. The draft is in Green Bay. But we look at what Matthew Golden did, and he's a nice role player. He's a good player, but I don't know if he'll command targets in a Green Bay offense. How confident are you that he's going to be the wide receiver you want in the Green Bay room?
Not that confident, but I still want to take some shots on it because we're still talking about a first-round wide receiver drafted by the Packers, which they don't really do. So kind of give you some confidence in Golden, just the fact that the Packers were willing to do that, in a way. They all have warts. They all have some serious warts. Like Matthew Golden is a rookie, but his production profile from college left you wanting. Not that great. Jaden Reed makes a lot of plays, but only plays in the slot, and he's had some troubles with his hands. That's actually a probably ongoing issue in the entire wide receiver room. Romeo Doubs, good outside receiver, can beat the press enough to kind of always stick out there, but not really exceptional anywhere, has problem with his hands. And, Dontavian Wicks does everything good before the ball gets to him and then is awful when it gets to him because he cannot catch. So they're all like B's at best, in the wide receiver room. None of them really stand out from each other. I bet on Jaden Reed a decent amount because he has some real production history that we can get excited about if he ever plays more than just the slot, more than 3 wide receiver sets. We really got something there. And I'm betting on Matthew Golden because of this rookie potential upside, but I'm not investing that much in the wide receiver room in general, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, if you're not investing in the wide receiver room, are you investing much in Jordan Love overall?
I'm not really, if I'm being honest. I thought I was going to be like way into Jordan Love after his first full year as a starter, because that second half of his first full year was magical. Like he was making all throws. His highlight reel mixtape was like something else. It looked really good. And then last year he deals with the injuries. The offense becomes really run heavy, and you have to wonder how much of that first year was, running a little hot, how much of it was real, how much of last year was real. I don't think Matt LaFleur wants to be as run heavy as he was last year, but it also kind of worked for them. So I'm not sure. It's hard. They're a hard offense to project going into 2025. And because I think that they are more likely to be a balanced team, I've kind of been out on Jordan Love. There's just people around him I'd rather bet on, like JJ McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence. So I haven't found myself with much Jordan Love.
Yeah, not a lot of love for Love. That's what we're getting from Wyatt. In my projections, I do have Jaden Reed ahead of Matthew Golden for the best ball value rating, but it's negligible. You have Wicks there. You do have Kraft, who the Packers have been talking up a lot this offseason. Talk is cheap in the NFL, and LaFleur, yes, was including him in the schemes, and they said that they're going to continue to do that. But it's just another mouth to feed when it comes to like such an even distribution. Like the Packers, as you mentioned, have like B's across the board. Like the warts and all. Matthew Golden not historically been a target commander. You mentioned out of the slot Jaden Reed, but he also doesn't play a ton of snaps. Like he gets pulled a lot, the 60-70% of snaps, maybe. Like that's just going to limit your upside, even if you're gonna, well, it limits your floor and it can limit your upside if you're not playing and you barely get some touches. So maybe some, especially in redraft leagues, the Packers are an avoid completely. In best ball, I'm fine sprinkling them in, but I can't imagine clicking confidently any of the Green Bay Packers in a redraft league.
You mentioned Tucker Kraft, and that's the one, actually, the one pass catcher. I'm not a wide receiver. This is a wide receiver show. Sure. I'm not talking about, but of the pass catchers, that's the one that I want to invest in most. I think he is the most talented at his position of the group. And we kind of talked about this previously on our tight end episode, that he doesn't rotate. Those wide receivers rotate. He does not rotate. He stays on the field. I think he could earn more targets because of what he did last year, and this coach speak going into this year.
For sure. So let's take a look at, we looked at the Green Bay Packers. We looked at the Chicago Bears. Wyatt, next up is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. And they've had a little bit of an interesting, last two off seasons. We've had the Xavier Worthy incidents. We've had the Rashee Rice incidents. Rashee Rice also coming back from an LCL injury. Marquise Hollywood Brown missed almost all of last season. So, yeah, Travis Kelce is on the significant decline. That allows for a little bit more opportunity. Rice has, a couple months ago, Rice and Worthy were very close in ADP. Rice has risen. Worthy has dropped a little bit. I identified Worthy as one of the worst clicks a few months ago, and now I'm getting a little bit better prices. I'm still not in on Xavier Worthy as his profile's Deshaun Jackson, right? He's got the speed, he's got downfield win. I'm just not sure if Matt Nagy will continue to allow Mahomes to throw the ball down the field like we saw in the Super Bowl, like when it was garbage time ultimately, right? Like I don't have confidence that that's actually the game plan moving forward. Do you have more confidence in Xavier Worthy's fantasy output?
A little bit more, because I think I have more confidence in the offense than you going into 2025. Part of my operating procedure for the Chiefs is that I don't think they're going to be able to stand behind leads as much this year as they have been in the past, because I think their division is getting much better. I think there are going to be much more games where they have to put up points, unlike they've had to the last couple of years. Shout out Scott Barrett. I used this stat earlier on Mine and Mansion. I'm going to use it again because I thought it was a really great stat from Scott Barrett that Patrick Mahomes first in the NFL in passing yards in the first half, but then the second half of games, he's 29th in the NFL in passing yards. So kind of goes to show you that the Chiefs have been, putting up some points and then kind of riding out the rest of the game, trying to get to the playoffs, trying to win a Super Bowl,
Sure.
right? And I just don't think they're going to have that option this year, at least not as much as they've been able to in the past. And for that reason, I am in the passing game in general, and I'm attacking the passing game through Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. Although I'll say Rashee Rice's price now is like getting really aggressive. I've been trying to get some when I can, when he doesn't go like middle of the second round, like end of the second round, into the third round. I've been trying to get it there when I can. I do think that Rashee Rice can pick up where he left off for the most part. I don't think Rashee Rice is a particularly great wide receiver. I think he's pretty limited, but the Chiefs found the exact way to use him in the NFL. And there's no denying that he was very good in that role. And a lot of what Xavier Worthy did at the end of last year was kind of what Rashee Rice was doing, which was nice to see Xavier Worthy build that part of his game out. We know that's available for him now, which is great. I'm not sure how much of that he continues to get in 2025 with Rashee Rice healthy again. But I also think that, like, if Xavier Worthy just catches a few of those bombs that him and Mahomes missed on, we feel differently about Xavier Worthy coming into this year. If they can hit on those, we're just like off to the races with the offense, I think.
Right. Rashee Rice, wide receiver 12 in ADP. He's risen from 23 overall to 21 overall just in the last week and a half. So there has been some steam for Rice, even just in the early rounds. Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 24. So there is a bigger gap now, 45th overall on Underdog Fantasy. I know this is, again, wide receiver episode, but Isaiah Pacheco is really still standing out to me. Like, we talked about the Chiefs last week in the difficult to discern running back room, but he's not much of a pass catcher. Maybe Rashad Smith gets a little bit of work there. But how much is the pass catching running back going to affect like the Hollywood Browns or even the development of a Jalen Royals who was drafted, early day 3, Wyatt?
I think they want to have that available in the offense like they had with Jerick McKinnon in the past. I think they really enjoyed having that as an option in their offense, which they haven't really had. Maybe Rashard Smith can be that. I'm hoping he can, because that's the way I'm attacking the backfield. But I'm not sure that they're going to have that this year. And maybe that's a feather in the cap of Travis Kelce or Hollywood Brown as that next option for the offense. My guess is the ball kind of gets spread around a decent bit after Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. I'm not betting on Kelce like at all this year, personally. I think the decline is very real for him. And we kind of already know that he's been saving himself a little bit for the playoffs. I would expect more of that from Kelce this year.
Yeah, just to put in perspective for people at home, Travis Kelce, he's still good. In 2022, his best ball value rating was 9.6. In 2023, it was 7.1. In 2024, it was 4.2. That is a very steady decline.
Yeah.
Using that linear regression, we're looking at something like a 1 or a 2 best ball value rating, which for the people at home, what does that mean? We're talking Olamide Zaccheaus from 2024, Hunter Henry from 2024. And Hunter Henry had his weeks, but that's not going to get it done. Jalen Warren of last year, that's what the difference that it's going to make for you and your fantasy team. So yeah, it's trending really the wrong way for Kelce. So looking at other options like Brown or Royals, or, sprinkling in some of the pass catching running back options may be the way to go for Kansas City.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I know that Kansas City's division is getting better because we've seen the LA Chargers get better. So Wyatt and I are going to talk about the LA Chargers. But before we do, we have a word from the FFPC.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
And we're experiencing a technical difficulty. We'll be right back.
Hey, what if I told you there was a Dynasty app where you could get player lifetime values, evaluate trades, including draft picks out to 2028, compare the advanced metrics of two players, look up the sentiment, buy, sell, hold on players? Well, there is a mobile app that has all of that and more called the Dynasty Dominator, and it's $5 in the App Store on Google Play. This is my gift to you, the most affordable Dynasty League domination app available today. And if you already have it, the 2025 class is ready to download. Let's go!
Let's go! We're back. Man versus machine. Wyatt and Bradley discussing some of the wide receiver rooms that need a little bit of discussion. They're messy. The depth chart could be difficult to discern. It's worth discussing. And the Chargers, I think, are worth discussing because there is a lot of love for Ladd McConkey. He really came on strong, second round pick. He looked the part. The ADP is indicative of, the market confidence in McConkey. I have drafted a lot of McConkey, but then this year the Chargers draft Trey Harris, and they also have Quentin Johnson on the team, and big Mike Williams resigns. Wyatt, we can scratch Mike Williams, I think, pretty safely off the depth chart. Recently, his receiving line was removed from some of the betting markets, so there's some
Interesting.
Yes, so he may not be on the Chargers for long. But I think the question comes down to, we know kind of what Ladd McConkey is. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's the hyper-targeted guy. But Trey Harris, Quentin Johnson, they're both outside wide receivers. Can they coexist? Or is it you're going to have to pick one and just blindfold? Like, you hope that one of these guys, because Trey Harris, yards after the catch type of guy, big downfield threat. Quentin Johnson had arguably the worst rookie year ever for a wide receiver. They gave him another chance. Jim Harbaugh gave him a chance, and he came down with some passes. He was fancy usable week to week, but it still didn't look good.
Yeah.
So Trey Harris, he's going wide receiver 54. Johnson is all the way wide receiver 63. That might be a good value if Trey Harris is opening up the field and he's an actual legitimate threat, given the value. So I'm kind of in on the Chargers wide receiver room, like, as a whole. What are your thoughts on the Chargers?
Definitely really in Ladd McConkey. I think he proved himself greatly as a rookie, as really just an alpha in the league. I mean, he was fantastic. Yeah. He was 7th in yards per out run, 8th in yards per team pass attempt. Like, these were really good numbers. He has a, 15.1 PPR points per game as a rookie. I mean, that's fantastic, right? And that's with him starting the season a little bit slow as he came into the offense. I think he's someone who can play across the formation, just alpha. But Trey Harris complements him really well because, as you mentioned, Trey Harris, that big-bodied, downfield threat, can run after the catch. I think that opens things up a lot for Ladd McConkey. And I think Ladd McConkey is going to take so much coverage that it can lead Trey Harris kind of alone in some one-on-one matchups out on the outside where he can really dominate with Justin Herbert. I think that's great. And honestly, I mean, I don't like Quentin Johnson as a player. I don't think he's very good. He was a broken coverage merchant last year, but this could possibly open him up to play in a better role for himself, because he's kind of been forced to be this outside X wide receiver, but that's really not his strength. He's not very good against press. He's not good in contested catch situations. He's better after the catch than anything. So perhaps this opens things up for him to not have to play on the line of scrimmage. You know, Ladd McConkey could play outside along with Trey Harris. That might work Quentin Johnson into some big slot snaps where they're just trying to get him some after the catch situations. His ADP has fallen far enough now that I think it's worth taking a few shots on him. I kind of want to be invested in the passing game in general and in the room in general, like you said. The Chargers are a team that were more pass heavy than not in the back half of last year, as Justin Herbert got a little bit healthier after he was dealing with some injuries early. So yeah, just like the wide receiver room, as you said.
Yeah. And there's not much in the way of tight end receiving. So really, like, that consolidation can exist. The highest ADP tight end for the Chargers is Tyler Conklin. And I love Conklin. Like, he's earned his targets. He's been a solid guy. He looks like a Viking. Like, he's a dude. I love Tyler Conklin, but we know what he is for fantasy, and he's just a guy. He's better than probably some of the other guys on the Chargers, but he maybe comes down with 4 or 5 touchdowns this year would probably be the ceiling, but he's not going to command targets. So looking at, like, maybe it's a Marion Hampton who gets a lot of work, pass in the passing game. Outside of those 3, though, of McConkey, Harris, Johnson, that's it. We mentioned Mike Williams. They drafted Kendra Lambert-Smith really late. Darius Davis is a special teamer. That's pretty much it. So when it comes to who's going to get the targets, we have lots of confidence that there can be consolidation to McConkey and earning that wide receiver 11 overall. I think that actually is kind of a good value. Like, I'm pretty comfortable clicking McConkey in the middle of round 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty aggressively drafting Ladd McConkey and Trey Harris specifically. And like I said, I don't mind taking some shots on Quentin Johnson late in drafts. If, Justin Herbert falls past ADP, you can always backstack him with Quentin Johnson if you really want to. You draft Ladd McConkey, miss on Trey Harris, you can always, double stack with Quentin Johnson. I have no issue with that.
All right, Wyatt. I told you this would be a quick one because we have one set of wide receivers to debate, and it's Jack Bech and Dante Thornton. I am pro Thornton. Wyatt is not as pro Thornton based on our conversations. I'm fastest wide receivers in combine history, 6'3" or taller. Number 7, Calvin Johnson. Number 4, Tyron Calico. Tied for 4th, DJ Chark. Tied for 4th, Julio Jones. Tied for 2nd, DK Metcalf. Tied for 2nd, Brian Thomas Jr. Number 1, Dante Thornton. Look, can't teach speed, can't teach size, and he's already ahead of Bech in the depth chart. So I'm still very pro Thornton, and I feel validated by the depth chart news.
I would love for you to throw some college production filters on that list of players there and see if he still finds himself in that collection of players. I don't know that Dante Thornton is necessarily ahead of Jack Bech on the depth chart per se, just because he's getting some reps in OTAs, first team reps, I use in quotation marks in the OTAs, because I think interesting note from actually Austin Eckler while talking on the Established the Run podcast with Adam Levitan, who mentioned these kinds of rotations almost mean nothing for the players in there. And, Jack Bech, the much more highly drafted player, I think the better prospect coming into the NFL by a lot, better production profile coming into the NFL. The thing that Jack Bech has going against him, he's probably a little bit close to Jacoby Myers in skill set, but Jack Bech in TCU was playing as the RX wide receiver. So I don't see why he couldn't do that in the NFL necessarily. I think he's best suited as a power slot in the NFL, but he at least showed that he can do that outside. Matt Harmon's reception perception on him showed that he was good against press, good in contested situations. So I think that he can do that in the NFL too. I'm still betting on Jack Bech pretty easily. And I think that Dante Thornton is really just a wind sprinter, and he's going to do some for the love of the game routes out there.
Hey, I'm here for a couple of those big plays, but I hear you. The draft capital is there for Bech. These are very early. These are just so early. They're, throw them out the way. You're right. Like this is fun to just like, oh, this is the news. Oh, this is what's happening. It's fun to root for athletic guys though. And Thornton is definitely a unicorn in terms of what he brings in an athleticism perspective.
For sure.
But whether that translates into NFL production or fantasy production, it's at least encouraging to see that he's getting something of an opportunity. Even, yes, he was a round 4 guy, so it's not like they waited around. Yes, it was round 4. So that's not negligible draft capital. It's a tweener. It's one of those like awkward, like obviously if a team wanted to, they would, but it's worth, I think he's worth a dart throw if he's, but his ADP has risen. Like now that news has dropped, I'm kind of out on value on Thornton, as funny as that is.
Yeah, he rose like 20 or 30 picks off of that news. I mean, it's the end of the draft, so it's still kind of like the same, same kind of dart throw back there in the draft, but it's true. He's been rising now because of that.
In fact, Dante Thornton, the #1 trending player on Player Profiler's page. So people are very interested in finding out more about this unicorn of a player. All right. That went longer, I think, than what Wyatt was hoping for, discussing the Vegas Raiders wide receiver. We know it's Jacoby Myers. We know it's Brock Bowers. We know it's Ashton Genty. Those are going to be the 3 guys in Vegas, but we are monitoring the depth chart there for the Raiders. New England has an interesting depth chart because they just whiffed last year pretty badly on wide receiver. Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. It was bad. And yes, they bring in Stephon Diggs, who has historically been a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, no matter where he's been. Minnesota, Buffalo, and Houston. Now he's in New England, but recovering from a pretty significant ACL tear that happened mid-season. It wasn't like a week 1, week 2 injury. You also have Kyler Williams, who was drafted in day 2. You've got Demario Douglas, who is a nice player, but offers no upside. So how are you discerning these players and maybe any other wide receivers in this room? Because it's kind of hard to figure out who Drake May is going to lock into week 1.
It is a little bit difficult. Kyle Williams played X in college. He's a little small for an X, but he was really good against press. So I think it's possible he could still do it in the NFL. And I'm guessing that's where they want him to be, because Stephon Diggs at this point in his career doesn't really have the same top end speed he had in the past to really be able to play downfield like he was able to. And like last year for Houston, he was mostly played out of the slot and was doing stuff in the short and intermediate. I think that that's probably what they want from him for the most part in New England, to find a nice, reliable target for Drake May in the short and intermediate areas of the field. Pop Douglas can help with that too. You mentioned Pop Douglas, not that high of a ceiling, which is absolutely true. But I do think he actually is like a quality slot for New England, a low floor player. But, I find myself drafting some Pop Douglas because I want to be drafting a lot of Drake May. And you get late in these drafts, and sometimes you've got a wide receiver room where you're thinking, I need to find someone who I can count on for maybe 8 points in a week. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you find yourself in that position, and Demario Douglas is that guy.
Give me 8 points, Pop Douglas. Come on now.
Yeah. I think very highly of Drake May. I think he's going to be one of the next best top QBs in this NFL. But I think that he might spread the ball around a lot in this offense because I'm not sure if any of these players can really stand above any of the others, so much so that I think they're going to be big values at their cost. I'm kind of just dabbling in them in general because I'm just so high on Drake May that I just want to have some exposure to his weapons.
Yeah, I know we've talked about Drake May before, and I think that's the reason why I have more out on Drake May than you are. I'm not zero. I don't want zero Drake May. I think that would be silly, but because I don't know who he's going to be throwing to, and the options that I do know are low ceiling guys like Hunter Henry and Pop Douglas, and an injured Stephon Diggs. That's my concern, is that like maybe Ryan Tannehill's himself to quarterback 8 or quarterback 7, but he doesn't offer quarterback 5 every week. He's more like quarterback 8 to 10 to 12 every week. But then overall in the season, you're like, oh, that turned out pretty well. Like, it's fine. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to move the needle for me. Like, I was hoping that Drake May was going to get more of like a T Higgins or a Brandon Ayuk type.
I crossed my fingers all offseason that T Higgins would have found a way to the Patriots.
Oh, that would have been too good. But we're stuck with Kyle Williams, Pop Douglas. So yeah. Any last thoughts on New England?
You bring up Hunter Henry, and honestly, he might be the best costed of the bunch. Obviously, we've already said this before. This is a wide receiver show, but the tight end might actually be the best option cost-wise.
I love it. I mean, we've seen Hunter Henry for the last 6 years just continue to produce. He's just a guy.
Reliable.
20+% target share. There's only a few tight ends last year who were 20+%. And Hunter Henry was one of them. And that's pretty sticky year to year. And we've seen Henry be able to do that. So given the wide receiver room, maybe he falls to 18%. Like, it's still going to be there. He's still going to be, and there's no tight end competition. We're going to move on to Tampa Bay, though. Enough about New England. The wide receiver room there is starting to age. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are on the wrong side of the age apex. We've seen Godwin suffer numerous season-ending injuries in his career so far. Evans was hurt at the beginning of last year and then they hyper-targeted him to get to the 1,000 yards at the end of the season. He was nowhere close to making that pace through pre-injury, and then even a couple games after he returned from injury, but that 1,000 yards is definitely something that the team made a concerted effort to do. Tampa drafts in the first round Emeka Egbuka. They are describing him as a running back acting as a wide receiver. Like, this is a player I was very excited about. You line him up with Baker Mayfield. This is an offense that wants to be aggressive. Baker wants to be aggressive, look down the field. He wants to make big plays. That's how the offense worked last year. And if it's more Bucky Irving, who's very dynamic and explosive, this whole offense, like, I want in on Evans and some Godwin, and I want in on Egbuka, first round draft capital, wide receiver. And there's Alex is throwing in a Jalen McMillan wide receiver 2 season, and I'm not going to go that far, but what Jalen McMillan proved last year, Wyatt, is that there's wide receiver contingency, and it doesn't matter. Like, Baker Mayfield will make people work as fantasy assets, Jalen McMillan included. So is that the right way to gauge this wide receiver room, that it's Evans and Godwin, and then it's Egbuka and then McMillan? Or is there a pathway for Egbuka to just be the target earner on this team pretty quickly?
Egbuka's my favorite of the bunch at cost, without a doubt. I like the offense in general. I like the wide receiver room in general. I want exposure to the group in general. But Mike Evans, yes, getting up there in age. He is an ageless wonder. When will that end? Who knows? The way it normally works for the decline for wide receivers is they're good, and then they're bad all of a sudden, and it tends to just drop off. We haven't really seen the drop off for Mike Evans yet, but it's worth noting, like you said, most of that production came after Chris Godwin's injury. Part of that's because of Liam Cohen's offense was more focused on Chris Godwin in the slot. Like the year prior, it was Mike Evans being the more productive player. But Mike Evans is getting up there in age. That drop off could happen at any point. I'm not counting on it. I'm just saying this is an out for Emeka Egbuka. Chris Godwin was absolutely fantastic last year, but is coming back from this ankle injury, not his first season-ending injury. I don't know how ready he's going to be for week 1. I don't know how ready he'll be in general if he is back, and when he comes back from that ankle injury. That'll be really interesting to see. It's a kind of a rare injury in a way, really, especially for like a wide receiver. Like I can't think of a wide receiver coming back from a broken ankle like this. So I just don't know. I don't have a frame of reference on it. And then Emeka Egbuka can play inside and out. Chris Godwin can play inside and out. This is a team that's probably going to play 3 wide receiver sets all the time. Emeka Egbuka, people see him as a mostly slot player. He had a higher yards per out run out wide than he did in the slot in college. So, like, proof that he can play wherever. So, Emeka Egbuka has multiple outs, but gets drafted much later than the other receivers. I think he's like the easy bet out of the 3. But I said I want to be drafting them all. I'm excited for the offense in general. Even with Liam Cohen leaving, I think that we saw Baker Mayfield, take a step up and play last year, where he might not reach the heights that he reached last year, but I think we're going to see a Baker Mayfield who we're excited for, year in and year out now.
Oh, I'm so excited for Baker Mayfield. It's so I grew up we are in the Cleveland area. We were privy to the Browns debacle. The reality is that
unfortunately,
I've been rooting for Baker as a player ever since they shipped him off to Carolina, and he didn't deserve it. He didn't get a fair shake in Carolina. Like, that organization, especially back then, was just disaster zone. We remember he was playing defensive tackle in practice, as a joke, but come on now. This is the former number 1 overall pick. And then he gets shipped off to LA on a Thursday. He has less than 48 hours, turns it around, wins the game for the Rams, and then signs with Tampa. And it seems like he just fits the culture. He is the leader of men in that space. Baker Mayfield, I've made some adjustments to my projections, and Baker Mayfield is my quarterback 9 in projections right now. It's fine. I'm happy with him, at quarterback 9. And I think there's upside there given all of the wide receiver options. And we saw, as Alex pointed out, Jalen McMillan still produced, Cade Otton produced, heck, Payne Durham produced when Cade Otton was out. There was production to be had. It doesn't matter who was catching the ball. Baker Mayfield made it happen. And when you add the talent of Egbuka, that's very, very exciting for the fantasy prospects of drafters who are taking Egbuka very late now. For reference, Egbuka is going as wide receiver 48, 89th overall. Yeah. That's free money, Wyatt.
I have to agree.
Free money. Well, hopefully we've been giving you the free money in fantasy football advice. Wyatt and I, Man versus Machine, every Wednesday. I will not be on next week. Well-deserved family vacation. So I will not be the machine next week. But the rest of the summer, we'll be here bringing you the fantasy goodness. Wyatt, any last words for the people before we call it for the evening?
Everybody out there, if you enjoy the show, make sure to check back through the rest of the Man vs. Machine episodes we've been doing. I think we were hitting on a lot of really good actionable advice for everybody out there.
Yeah, check out the running back episode that we did last week. It hit really well. It was the most watched video on this channel since the end of March. So shout out Wyatt. That was great. Shout out to Nick for the thumbnail.
Shout out you.
Oh, we're here. I'm just the machine, Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Alex. Thank you for checking us out, everybody. Until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets.